Prime Minister Carney says his government is signing a partnership with Germany to develop critical minerals in Canada.
The mistake that Mr. Carney has made is that he promised elbows up, and of course it's been elbows down ever since the election. Carney is one walking, talking, broken promise.
Broken promises and lies. Partnership with Germany to develop critical minerals. Sounds good, right? The only problem is it's not true. Welcome to the channel. If you could, please hit that like button. And if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. I'll start this one off with our state-funded media lying about a partnership deal with Germany.
We have breaking news to lead off this hour. Prime Minister Mark Carney is taking fresh steps to reposition Canada's trade relationships. He's in Germany this morning. On the same day, his U.S. trade minister is restarting talks with Washington. This is video from Berlin earlier this morning as the Prime Minister is welcomed by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Germany is the Prime Minister's latest stop from his trip to Europe. We can tell you there are two headline developments this morning. Prime Minister Carney says his government is signing a partnership with Germany to develop critical minerals in Canada.
The Chancellor and I, and we were joined by others, in developing a critical minerals action plan. Basically, for this diversification to happen, you need willing buyers as well as willing sellers. And we have an initiative to help develop and stockpile those critical minerals. And it's in that context that the Minister of Natural Resources and his counterpart will be signing a joint declaration on intent on critical minerals cooperation, so to accelerate innovation, investment, and collaboration.
Most of the mainstream media is saying that Canada signed a critical minerals deal or a partnership with Germany. No, we didn't. In Mark Carney's own words, it's an action plan. It's actually a joint declaration of intent. It's a non-binding political statement. From the Government of Canada's own website, this joint declaration of intent is not legally binding and does not create any financial commitment. Not a deal, not a partnership, just a statement. Worth about as much as the paper it's written on, minus the millions they likely spent to release it. Now to Pierre Poilievre talking about how he would deal with the tariffs and Trump.
Let me ask you about tariffs and the relationship with the United States. You have been quite adamant you don't like the fact that Canada has recently removed some tariffs on U.S. products coming into the country. Why don't you like that? I
would clarify slightly. What I would like to see is tariffs removed on both sides of the border. I think that the mistake that Mr. Carney has made is that he promised elbows up, and of course it's been elbows down ever since the election. He removes tariffs without getting anything in return, and he is signaling weakness. That's why the Americans have actually increased tariffs on Canada. The Chinese sense the same weakness, so they're increasing tariffs on our fish harvesters, seafood producers, and farmers. And the weakness is costing Canadians here at home. So what I think we should do is go to President Trump and say, listen, why don't we both remove tariffs? Let's get to a tariff-free relationship again, and in exchange for that, we will build up our military like you haven't seen since the Second World War. We'll harden up our borders against drugs and other dangers. You'll be safer, we'll both be richer, and we'll be a stronger continent as a result.
Carney basically screwed himself when he put on the retaliatory tariffs. We knew that they were going to have to be removed to get a deal with Trump, but by doing that, like Pierre said, it made him look weak. And let's be clear, he is really weak. Mark Carney has done one thing really well, and that is put on a show. He's flying all over the world, in front of cameras, giving speeches, and doing nothing for Canada at the same time. Now, Pierre Poilievre has mentioned many times that Carney has got nothing in return for removing the retaliatory tariffs. Stick with me here, because it gets interesting.
Today we learned that it has been yet another capitulation and climb down by Mark Carney. His elbows have mysteriously gone missing. And this call follows on other concessions. He promised during the campaign he would have dollar-for-dollar retaliation. He pulled that back. He made concessions on the military while getting nothing in return. He pulled back on his digital services tax, a terrible tax, but you'd think he'd get something in return for it. Nothing. And today, he removed even almost all of the tariffs on the United States and got none lifted from Canada.
CTV heard this loud and clear and brought on Tom Mulair, who had a, I don't know how to call it, hilarious, ridiculous, insane spin on this.
Let's bring in CTV News political commentator Tom Mulair, former leader of the NDP. Tom, good to see you. And let's start, if I can, with that breaking news out of Washington that there has been a meeting now between the Carney government's trade minister, so to speak, on U.S.-Canada trade, Dominic LeBlanc, and Trump's Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick. Your take?
Well, this dovetails with Friday's announcement by Prime Minister Carney that he was removing some of Canada's counter tariffs. Now, that caught a lot of people off guard. Why would we remove those when we've been through all of that with Donald Trump? But it became clear that Canada had not been as clever as the United States about avoiding to put tariffs or counter tariffs on things that are covered by the Canada-US-Mexico trade deal. So the Americans were sitting pretty, saying, you've got to remove this irritant, you've got to get rid of those. So we did that, but this time around, we made sure we negotiated something, and that was the proper continuation of the trade talks, which Trump confirmed over the weekend that that was the deal. Carney had already said as much, and we, lo and behold, today, we've got the Lutnick meeting, of course, with Dominic LeBlanc.
So according to CTV and Tom here, we did get something in return for removing the retaliatory tariffs. And that was being able to return to negotiating a trade deal. And this is exactly why Donald Trump wanted a liberal government.
He's stupidly no friend of mine. I don't know him, but he said negative things. So when he says negative things, I couldn't care less. I think it's easier to deal actually with a liberal. And maybe they're going to win, but I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me at all.
Tomorrow, the typical news we are used to getting in Canada. Canada Post reported a loss before tax of $407 million in its second quarter.
Well, under normal circumstances, if this was a private business, my answer would be yes. This would be like what we saw at the Bay. Couldn't avoid the failure. The difference here is this is a quasi-governmental agency, and although nothing is happening at Canada Post that isn't happening with other post offices around the world. So far, no post office anywhere in the world has been allowed to close. Translation is the government would likely step in.
Nothing is happening at Canada Post that isn't happening at other post offices around the world, except that there are other postal services, government-run, that are profitable, such as Switzerland, Singapore, Japan, and France. Stop making excuses. It's mismanaged. Fire the people in charge and investigate where all this money went. Now to Kevin O'Leary on Fox News talking about Americans fleeing to Canada. I actually thought this was a mistake. Maybe it was supposed to be the other way around, but no.
Look, immigration data, according to this new data, more Americans are fleeing to Canada. You're a Canadian, I believe. What's going on here?
Well, I have to be full disclosure. I always say this. I'm also Irish citizen, and I have a residency card, the UAE. I just want to get it out there, okay? My kids are all American, and they were born in Boston. So, you know, I'm a guy with feet in many countries. They're going to Canada right now for a bunch of different reasons. The immigration policy there is currently more liberal than it is in the U.S. Immigration has almost fallen to zero here, and a lot of people would like to start looking at that in a more organized legal fashion. But while it remains so tight, many people are taking advantage of policies that were put in place during the Trudeau era that have not been modified yet. And so in certain provinces like Alberta, which is booming.
So they're not fleeing America because they don't like it.
No.
They're going to Canada because there's opportunity there to get in and stay there.
And during the period where students, for example, weren't getting visas or were threatened not to be getting visas, some of them went to Canadian universities, and a lot of that's happening. But, you know, I am looking forward to, now that Canada is a more cooperative narrative with the U.S., a trade policy to be in place with them in a matter of 90 days. I think it's be good for both countries.
It would indeed. Good stuff.
This should be concerning because you know it's not hardworking, good, down-to-earth Americans that are coming here for the opportunities Canada has. Why would they? There aren't that many opportunities here. It would be people coming because of Canada's practice of DEI, and of course people coming here because of Trump derangement syndrome, which are those the people we really want here in Canada? I'm going to end the video here. That's it for this one. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Elbows up.
Elbows up. Elbows down.